Midori, the Camellia Girl, is an animated film from Japan released in 1992. It was created by Hiroshi Hirata, an independent animator who struggled to get funding because of the film's disturbing themes. The film shows graphic violence and deeply disturbing scenes that have made it one of the most controversial pieces of Japanese animation. Despite its harsh imagery, Midori has gained a cult following among fans of experimental and underground animation. Copies of the film are rare because it was never widely released due to censorship issues and its extreme content. The story follows Midori, a young girl who loses her parents. Midori is poor, and her father abandoned her, leaving her with her very sick mother. Midori works by selling camellia flowers because she is eager to save money for school. One night, a suspicious man buys all her flowers and gives her a card with his address, offering help if needed. That same night, Midori finds out that her mother has passed away. Midori goes to the address and finds it is a traveling circus in financial ruin. This is not a typical circus, but a freak show filled with social outcasts and deformed performers. The members include a mummy lacking both arms, a woman who controls snakes, a sword swallower, and a trans girl. Midori is exploited by the circus members and customers. They force her to stay, telling her to forget her dreams. Her only source of happiness, 3 puppies, are killed and cooked by one of the members. Salvation appears in the form of Masamitsu, a dwarf magician and hypnotist with a god complex. His show of entering and exiting a bottle drastically increases the circus's sales. Midori and the magician fall in love, and he uses his influence to protect her from further abuse. When the circus falls back into ruin as the manager flees with all the money, the performers disband. Midori decides to leave with the magician to start a new life. While waiting for a bus, the magician goes to buy food and is stabbed by a thief. Midori, unable to find him, believes he has abandoned her. Overwhelmed by grief and her own mental instability, she hallucinates the circus members as demons who have betrayed her. Plague Dogs follows the story of 2 dogs named Snitter and Ralph. They escape from a laboratory in England where scientists experimented on them for medical research. The dogs were subjected to painful tests and lived in constant fear. Once they escape, the authorities hunt them down because they believe the dogs might be carrying a deadly disease. The dogs struggle to survive in the wild, searching for food and shelter while being chased by humans and facing harsh conditions. One of the most heartbreaking parts of the film is Snitter's dream about finding an island, a safe place where he and Ralph can live happily. But the reality is cruel. After a long and painful journey, the 2 dogs are cornered. In the end, they swim out into the ocean, exhausted and close to drowning. In his final moments, Snitter hallucinates the island and cries out, asking Ralph if he can see it too. Ralph, even though he knows there is nothing there, tells Snitter he sees it too, so his friend can die with some hope. The film ends there, strongly implying that both dogs drown. Plague Dogs is beautifully animated, but it is a heavy and devastating film. It is not recommended for sensitive viewers, especially those who struggle with depression. FernGully, The Last Rainforest, tells the story of a lush tropical forest hidden near Mount Warning in Australia. Living there is Krista, a young, curious, and somewhat rebellious fairy who begins to question the limited world in which she grew up. Although she was taught that humans became extinct long ago, defeated and driven out by Hexus, the spirit of destruction and pollution, Krista senses that something is approaching. Krista perceives a latent threat. One day, Krista ventures out and crosses paths with Pips, a chaotic and amusing bat who was a victim of human experiments. Together, they discover a devastated area, full of trees marked with red crosses. There, she encounters a human named Zack, whom she accidentally shrinks to save him from being crushed. Zack becomes trapped in the world of FernGully, embarking with Krista and Pips on a journey that will transform him forever. However, a greater threat is unleashed. The industrial logging machine Zack's co-workers were using cuts down an ancient enchanted tree, unknowingly freeing Hexus, the antagonist who was imprisoned inside. Upon being released, Hexus is reborn as an entity of smoke and oil, feeding on pollution to gain strength and take control of the machinery. He is visually unsettling, with glowing eyes and a twisted smile. His way of speaking, moving, and corrupting the environment conveys a terrifying sensation. Furthermore, the depiction of human damage as irreversible, cold, and systematic is disturbing. The machines that fell the forest are huge, noisy, unstoppable, and feel like real monsters. Seeing the trees fall, the animals flee, and the magic fade generates a feeling of true anguish. The film is not afraid to speak about human ignorance. Zack represents someone who never questioned the damage his work was causing until he sees it from the inside. The problem is not the villains, but ordinary people who choose not to look. Although the ending has a positive twist, with Hexus being contained, the sense of threat never completely disappears. FernGully does not promise that everything will be fine. It only leaves the hope that the correct decisions can make a difference. Its darkness is a reminder that true terror can come from our own actions. The Adventures of Mark Twain isn't a film for everyone. It's for those who can appreciate a deep story filled with reflections on life. This extraordinary journey is based not only on Twain's fantastical works, but also on intimate elements of his own life. Did you know he once wrote that he felt like a stranger who had arrived on Earth aboard Halley's Comet? That's because he was born on November 30th, 1835, right when the comet was passing close to Earth. And on the day he died, April 21, 1910, the comet returned to the sky, just as it does every 76 years. The animation explores 4 of his key works: The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, The Diaries of Adam and Eve, The Mysterious Stranger, and Captain Stormfield's Visit to Heaven. These stories are woven into the main narrative, which follows Mark Twain himself as he travels aboard a flying machine, attempting to intercept Halley's Comet and leave with it. He's joined by 3 of his most iconic characters: Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and Becky Thatcher. Twain left behind deeply philosophical texts in which he harshly criticized the human species. He argued that we are the only animal that is greedy, cruel for pleasure, and capable of enslaving and killing in the name of ideology or profit. In several of his unfinished works, Twain wrote about Satan, using the character as a vehicle to explore morality, fanaticism, and human suffering. One of those stories, The Mysterious Stranger, serves as the basis for the film's most disturbing scene, the appearance of Satan, portrayed as a headless, shape-shifting figure who doesn't act like a villain, but rather as a tragic philosophical character. This portrayal shocked many families who weren't expecting such heavy themes in an animated film. In fact, when it premiered in the US, several audience members walked out of the theater carrying their children, shaken by the scene's dark existential tone. Perhaps the most curious fact of all is that Twain was such a provocative thinker that he even inspired Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan, who included him in the first edition of the Satanic Bible alongside Nietzsche and Fritz Lang, considering Twain a key influence. Felidae is a German animated film released in 1994. The movie was born as an animated film for younger audiences in Germany, but in the rest of the world it was labeled as a movie for adults. I have to say that Felidae is a very good film and I recommend it, but be careful because it might not be what you expect. The story is dark and mysterious. Its main purpose is to show how complicated, twisted, and decadent feline society can be, including murder and violence. The film follows Francis, a cat who moves to a new neighborhood and discovers a series of gruesome cat murders. As he investigates, he finds dark secrets about cult rituals, genetic experiments, and the violent nature of cats. Many parents around the world were furious because they rented this film for their kids, sometimes as young as 5, without knowing what it contained. German kids didn't seem to have a problem with it, but for children from other countries, discovering that part of Felidae is a total existential shock. Watership Down is an animated film that at first glance looks like a typical bunny story, but underneath that soft fur, it's a story about survival, violence, and the brutal side of nature. Fiver, a nervous rabbit, gets hit with a vision of blood flooding their warren. Total destruction. No one believes him, except his brother Hazel. So they gather a small group and leave their home behind, crossing dangerous terrain to find somewhere safe. Predators are everywhere. Hawks swoop down, dogs charge, humans build fences and traps. The rabbits push forward, exhausted and terrified, and when they finally discover other warrens, it's not exactly a warm welcome. One place is ruled by General Woundwort, a massive rabbit who's basically a dictator. He keeps his rabbits under strict control, punishes anyone trying to escape, and runs his warren like a military base. The tension between his rule and Hazel's small band of freedom seekers drives the story into darker territory. The film builds a strange sense of realism. You see sweeping fields and peaceful skies, then suddenly rabbits are biting each other's throats open. Everything looks pretty until you realize how close these animals live to violence and death. Mixed into all this is a rabbit mythology. There's a sun god called Frith who gave predators claws and teeth, and rabbits speed and cunning. It's their way of explaining why life's so hard, why danger never really goes away. People love reading metaphors into it: wars, revolutions, refugees. The author always said he just wanted to tell a good story about rabbits, but it's hard not to see reflections of human struggles in the way these animals fight for freedom and safety. The rabbits keep going because they believe in finding a place where they can live without fear. Even if the world's brutal, they still hold on to stories and legends that give them hope. Genocyber is an anime that stands out for its dark and turbulent narrative filled with violence and horror. The story revolves around a secret scientific project known as Genocyber, a program born from a ruthless quest for military power by a clandestine government organization, seeking to develop a devastating force that could be used as the ultimate weapon in international conflicts. The story begins with two sisters, Elaine and Diana, who are subjected to brutal experiments by this organization and a mad scientist. These experiments involve the implantation of cybernetic devices in their bodies and genetic manipulation to unleash destructive psychic powers. Elaine ends up being killed at the hands of her sister Diana, who is under the control of the organization. However, Elaine makes telekinetic contact with her sister, and the two decide to fuse, becoming Genocyber, a monstrous being with the power to destroy entire cities through its uncontrolled psychic abilities. After a fierce battle, Genocyber escapes from the organization's agents. But unfortunately, when Elaine finds her only friend lifeless after falling from a building, she releases a massive power wave that wipes out all of Hong Kong, consumed by rage and grief. This marks the birth of a merciless and uncontrollable version of Genocyber, whose only goal is destruction. Throughout the series, dark themes are explored, such as the ethics of human experimentation, the abuse of power by secret organizations, and human suffering. In addition to the protagonist's sisters, other dark and disturbing characters come into play: unscrupulous scientists, corrupt military officers, and ruthless conspirators, each with their own sinister motivations and a willingness to do anything to achieve their goals. The series takes place in a grim, decaying world where corruption and despair are the norm. Cities lie in ruins, society is on the brink of collapse, and hope is practically non-existent. Both Elaine and Diana face existential crises throughout the story. Elaine confronts the horror of what she has become and the loss of her humanity, while Diana seeks to destroy her sister and put an end to the devastation unleashed by Genocyber. Anomalisa tells the story of Michael Stone, a professionally successful man who is utterly broken inside. He travels to Cincinnati to give a lecture on customer service, but from the moment he lands, it's clear that something is off in the way he perceives the world. Every person around him has the exact same face and the exact same voice. The film never states it directly, but this phenomenon is inspired by FernGully syndrome, a real neurological condition in which a person believes that everyone they encounter is actually the same individual in disguise. Charlie Kaufman, the screenwriter and co-director, has said that Michael isn't literally suffering from this disorder, but that he used it as a symbolic device to illustrate extreme emotional isolation. To Michael, the world is a blur of indistinguishable figures. It doesn't matter who he talks to, everyone seems the same, lacking identity or soul. Everything changes when he hears a different voice. It belongs to Lisa, a shy, unremarkable woman. But to Michael, she stands out. She has a unique face and voice, and he immediately becomes obsessed. He invites her to his hotel room, they make love, and for a brief moment he believes he's escaped his internal nightmare. But the more time he spends with her, the more her flaws begin to show. Lisa is insecure, talks too much, sings off-key. And then the inevitable happens. Her voice and face begin to fade, becoming just like everyone else's. This doesn't mean Lisa changed. It means Michael can no longer sustain the illusion that someone might be different. Lisa was never truly real to him as a person. She was just a temporary escape, a projection of hope onto someone who seemed unique. Once that illusion breaks, the sameness returns. And here comes a disturbing theory. What if Lisa never existed at all? Before meeting her, Michael buys a doll from a sex shop. The doll has a scar similar to Lisa's, sings and speaks Japanese, along with subtle clues like the doll shown at the end of the film. This suggests Lisa may have been a hallucination born of Michael's psychological desperation, a literal voice given to his inner void. But the film offers no definitive answers. In fact, it ends with a scene from Lisa's perspective as she writes a letter to Michael. It's the only sequence in the film not shown through his eyes. Her friend has a different face, her voice isn't generic. This moment throws the entire interpretation into question.